First, let me assure you that this is not going to be candy sweet. Risotto is a versatile cooking method for a great many different flavors. Although it's usually served as a standalone course in traditional Italian dining, it can also function as a contorno, or side dish, as in the case of ossobuco with risotto milanese. So too, this can be served by itself, or splendidly with grilled rabbit, which is what I originally created this recipe for. And we begin by assembling our mise en place as usual. I have finely shredded carrots here. It says 60 grams. I've got 30 grams of Parmesan. I've got 30 grams of butter. This is going to go into the freezer in just a moment as soon as I stop the camera. I have 30 grams of white chocolate, 30 grams of shallots, the olive oil, cognac, and this is sage that I dried myself in the oven. The reason you use dried sage instead of fresh sage is that it won't be as strong. It will still have those lower notes, but it won't have the high notes. The high notes will overpower this. It'll turn it into something weird. You can buy dried sage and use it. The fresh sage you get yourself and dry is better. This just crumbles beautifully into something. You can just use a little bit at a time. But you know, that's a subject for my second volume of my cookbook. I'll explain more about how to dry your own herbs and why you would want to do that. In the meantime, and then the last thing, of course, is the stock, which I'm using duck stock for this. You can use chicken stock if you want to keep it completely vegetarian. You can use vegetable stock. The duck stock is going to give the best result, but not everybody has duck stock. I do have a video though on how to make duck stock from leftovers of your duck bones if you buy whole duck, but that's a separate video. So, stock is hot. We're going to begin to sweat the shallots. I have the pan on a medium heat. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to this and shallots. Now, you don't want to start with a hot pan here because we're not looking to brown the shallots. This is important. You want to cook these very slowly over a medium heat. It's on 5 out of 1 to 10. The first step to making any good risotto is to cook your shallots slowly and have them cut up to fairly small size, about the same size as your grains of rice. When this started sizzling, I turned the heat down even further, so it's on 3 now out of 1 to 10. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Now I'm going to add the rice in. And now I'm going to increase the heat back to medium, 5 out of 1 to 10. We're going to toast this rice a little bit until you start to smell a nutty aroma. Just a little bit. It won't take long. Just a couple minutes. Okay, it's been about 3 minutes here on medium heat. The rice is definitely on the toasty side now. The shallots are not at all browned, which you want to avoid. You don't want brown shallots in this. Now, the usual point, you would be adding white wine to a risotto. I am using 1.5 ounces of cognac. This is because you need some acidity and some other components here to balance out the chocolate, because you don't want to turn this into a dessert. It's still on a medium heat. Your time doesn't begin counting until you begin adding the first ladle of stock to your risotto. Until then, time is not important. And when you think this is mostly dried out, it's evaporated, it's getting real close. It doesn't take long for cognac to evaporate, or brandy in this case. Now we're going to begin the time. Just a second here. What you want to do is you want to get a kitchen timer like this and begin it as soon as you add the first ladle of stock to this, because this will give you a good indication of where you're at in the process of cooking. Okay, and also we're going to increase the heat now up from 5 to about 7.5, just under 8. We need to do this at a fairly high temperature. A lot of risottos are cooked at too low a temperature. It's one of the reasons why they don't taste right. So I'm going to add a couple of ladles of stock. I'm starting the timer. Stir it around. despite the common myth, risottos do not need to be stirred constantly. They need to be stirred frequently, though. You can't walk away and go do something else. Don't go talk to your friend on the phone now for an hour, obviously. But keep a watch on it, and as it dries out, you keep adding more stock. And we keep repeating this process with stirring and adding more stock until the time gets to about 12 minutes in. And as anyone who's ever made risotto correctly before knows, this is how the process works. You keep getting it to where it's almost dry. You add a little bit more stock. Right now we're at 4.5 minutes in. Okay, it's about 11.5 minutes now. We're coming up on the magical 12-minute mark. This is looking good. Most of the stock's already in it. Here's the finely grated carrots now. Right on 12 minutes. We're going to stir these around, and a little bit more stock. It's starting to look a little bit dry. The carrots will contribute moisture too. And we're going to give this about 1 minute before we add the next ingredient. Okay, we're on 13.5 minutes now. Yeah, I'm going to add the white chocolate in. And keep it going as a little bit more stock. Yeah, just added more stock. We're at almost 16 minutes now. Just added more stock. Now I'm going to add that Parmesan cheese. We're getting real close to the finished point. Incorporate this well. Now I've got this dried sage. I'm going to crumble up a little bit of that. And we're coming up real close now on 16.5 minutes. Add the last of the stock. That's it, no more stock. And you can see this is quite liquidy now because of the last final addition of the stock. It's gonna tighten up in just a minute. And now out of the freezer, right at 17-minute mark, almost right on the money here, is the butter. Now you need to, it's frozen, you got to whip this in, beat it in. And I've reduced the heat down now. In fact, actually I just turned the heat off completely. We're going to let the residual heat in this finish it. You want to keep stirring it vigorously at this point until you see there's no more chunks of butter in it. Get rid of all the chunks of butter. You want it to flow like a wave, especially at this point when it's still hot in the pan. Okay. I don't see any more chunks of butter. The heat's off. Lid's going to go on and it's going to rest for just a few minutes. Alright, it's been resting now, covered for about 4 minutes. Now you have to taste it. Okay, it needs a little bit more salt. It's also on the sweet side because I had to use Russian white chocolate, so I'm going to add, it's like half a teaspoon of sherry vinegar to this. Just enough to compensate for the slight excessiveness of the sweetness. Just a tiny bit. Yeah, I know it's an atrocity to Italians to add vinegar to risotto, but just a few drops. You won't taste the vinegar. All you'll taste is less sweetness. Okay, this is ready to plate up. If you like my videos, look for my cookbook, now available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other internet bookseller sites. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.